time it is?
That is a man's dishwasher.
The idea seemed a little crazy.
I had no idea what I was doing.
The cast, a bunch of unknowns.
No, it's Tim Allen. I'm like, who's Tim Allen?
And in comes big nursing lactating Pat.
And I'm going, oh man, I get to do the pilot, but I'm not going to get to do the show.
But when producers tossed in some cute kids,
all of a sudden this whole group of cheerleaders was chasing after me through Universal Studios.
and a smoking blonde, America got with the program.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Home Improvement beat up the competition. Yet battles raged close to home.
Do I want the writers to like me, or do I want to have to go out there and do crap?
Well, I like people antagonizing me, as long as they don't mind being fired.
He just said, I don't want to do this if this is how it's going to be.
So the others felt jealousy because this kid was a natural talent.
And then there was the explosive secret that nearly tore down the house.
Tim said, I'm not proud of what happened.
In exclusive interviews with all the key players, get ready for the real story on Home Improvement. The E, true Hollywood story.
So please sit back and enjoy the ride.
Seasons, Home Improvement hammered the competition, turning tool time into primetime gold. The long run ended in April 1999. At Disney Studios in Burbank, cast and crew taped the 201st and final episode.
If there is ever a battle that I would fight, I wouldn't want anybody else with me than all of you people.
It was a bittersweet moment for everyone. ABC execs paid tribute to a very special comedy.
You all have achieved television immortality. Just as people continue to enjoy I Love Lucy, All in the Family, and MASH, new generations will be watching Home Improvement.
Home Improvement finished its rookie season tied with Cheers at number 4 in the ratings and never left the top 10. Viewers loved the show's wacky storylines and colorful cast of characters. But few fans knew the real story, the saga of a sitcom that almost didn't happen. The reason? The same reason the show ignited. A funny man with a not-so-funny past named Tim Allen. He was christened Timothy Allen Dick on June 13th, 1953 in Denver, Colorado. Tim's dad, Gerald, sold real estate. His mom, Martha, looked after the home and her 6 children. As a kid, Tim endured constant teasing about his last name, but he learned to give as good as he got.
He was just always very humorous, had good comebacks to comments, and was always just sarcastic about certain things.
Tim performed at school, too.
I could get the teacher to lose control. And the more the teacher lost control, the more I took control. Eventually, the teacher has to either swat you, light you on fire, or just kick you out of class.
Tim loved to spend time with his father. They picked up tools at the local Sears store and worked together on projects.
It was one of the most pleasant times with your dad. It's when he's calmed down. If he was in a bad mood, this is when he's the most calm, and this is when he's the most fatherly when you're doing chores. I think I liked the manliness of it when we were kids. Dad, boys, and it's just a process.
Then, in November 1964, a horrible event shattered Tim's family. His father was driving home from a University of Colorado football game, and he was killed in an accident. Gerald Dick was only 40 years old.
I don't think one ever gets over the demise of a parent. These things aren't supposed to happen in a perfect world, and you live in a perfect world for a while. And what it mostly did to me is wake me up early. Now anything's possible. The gates open, the world could collide. There is nothing secure in life.
Tim's mother remarried 2 years later. The family moved to Birmingham, Michigan, near Detroit. The tough times continued for Tim Dick.
In gym class, it was always, I think the guy's name was Dykema. I hated him more than any other person because he was the guy right before me. And I didn't mean to hate the guy. It's just that every time I heard his name, it was that, okay, here we go. To a group of men that were nervous anyway, and so now you have a guy you can all laugh at because his name is a genital.
Tim graduated from Seaholm High in 1971. He enrolled at Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, where he studied TV production. Tim also liked to study the co-ed population.
I like her legs. Beautiful thighs. She'll even be nice years from now. Boy, she is sexy.
Yeah, did you ever see the movie Deep Throat?
She didn't like that. Why did I say that?
The one thing I thought was most interesting about Tim was the fact that he was willing as a male to present his vulnerability and confusion when it came to females. I would say that he recognized that men were from Mars and women were from Venus.
Tim wasn't confused about one student, though, Laura Dybel. He fell in love with her. But sometimes Tim hung out with a rough crowd. And after graduating in 1976, he started dealing drugs.
I think it was part of an era that was going on of peer group pressure, and that was the in thing to do at that point in time. And once you start dabbling in something like that, it grabs a hold of you. It was something that was helping him get through.
Not for long. In October 1978, Tim was busted for trying to sell $43,000 worth of cocaine to an undercover cop at the Kalamazoo airport. Tim pled guilty and cooperated with the authorities.
Tim said if he hadn't been caught, he would probably be dead now, either from the drugs or from the fact that the people that he was dealing with.
Tim took a job at a local sporting goods store while awaiting his sentence. A coworker encouraged him to try his luck at stand-up.
He said, "You're the funniest guy I know, and they have this comedy thing up at the Comedy Castle in Detroit." And I said, "Well, I have no act." I said, "I'm going to do it one day. I'm thinking about doing it. It'd be a good idea." And I had never had really any idea that I ever wanted to be a stand-up comedian. It was one of those things you see in movies. What are you, a puss? What are you, a baby? What are you, chicken? Hey, nobody calls me chicken. And I went and wrote the act and went up and did it.
Tim dropped his last name and took the stage as Tim Allen.
He was different than the rest of the comedians because he went out there with a nice-looking suit on, clean cut, looked great, and he wasn't foul-mouthed as much as a lot of the other comics, I think, were. He got a lot of laughs.
I knew that night was important. You're now in control of your own destiny. I took a spoon off the bar and scraped out all the grout. Brand new restaurant, took out a big tile that was right in front of me. Cleaned it off. I wrote on a magic marker, said I did it, dated it, and saved it.
9 months later, in November 1979, a judge sentenced Tim to 3 to 7 years for delivery of a controlled substance and conspiracy to deliver a controlled substance. The aspiring comic became inmate number 04276040 at the Sandstone Correctional Institution in Minnesota.
He was starved for news. I need news. Please tell me what's going on. Send me some pictures of some of our friends, things like that. And it more sounded like he was lonely and maybe kind of scared.
Some big guy in prison was beating him up. And he said, I could have hit him back, but instead, as the guy was beating him, he went into this joke. He started imitating Elmer Fudd, and the guy stopped beating him and said, do it again, that's funny.
Whenever he could, Tim turned the prison's gathering room into his own private theater.
While he was there, he produced a comedy show. He had one of the comedians, magicians, Mark Kornhauser, went up to Sandstone, and they did a show there. And I think Tim gained a whole new respect from the prison population after that.
It was a long time to be locked away. Yet Laura Dybel never gave up on her boyfriend.
Laura stuck by him. Laura was able to give him, I don't want to say supported him, but really supported him to let him aspire to do what he always wanted to do.
Tim became a model prisoner. He was paroled in 1982 after serving 28 months behind bars. Allen returned to Michigan with renewed drive and his sense of humor intact.
I screwed up, and I spent a little over 2 years in prison for it, and I learned my lesson, and I will never, ever sell drugs to a policeman again. No, I'm just kidding.
Tim took a hard right turn and started uphill. because at that point in time he was at the bottom. Tim just drove himself right up the ladder, not only for himself, his parents, and his family, but for Laura, who he was deeply in love with.
Tim Allen and Laura Dybel married in 1984. Tim worked full-time at a Detroit ad agency and did stand-up on the side whenever he could.
And look at a funeral procession. That's just bull. The hearse goes by, and the bereaved. Look at the third car. They're bummed out, but they got the radio on. And that last car, they don't even know who's dead. They just want to beat the red lights.
One day in Akron, Ohio, I was kind of making a joke because these guys weren't listening to me. It was a Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. There was some big convention. I said, well, why don't we just talk about our garage? Because they all went, huh? I got their attention. I went, it's got a drain in it, right? Yeah, we got a drain in it. You love drains. You got to have a drain in the garage. All of a sudden, I started talking a language that they enjoyed, screwdrivers. Soccer, which is kind of inane stuff. I mean, it's kind of stupid stuff, but it says a lot about men. And then I was able to find a bunch of the things about men that I'd never thought about.
My mom, after my father died, was like a liberated lady, you know, and she was real smart. But she treated us like little primitives. She always thought men, you just poop and eat. 8 little boys. Lawn care and vehicle maintenance. That's basically all we did.
But then all of a sudden, Tim was not only packing the place, but selling out the place. And then, you know, it started to happen in Columbus, and it started to happen in Pittsburgh, and it started to happen in Minneapolis.
In December 1989, Tim became a dad when Laura gave birth to daughter Catherine. Alan's career got a boost too. Tim's hilarious take on the American male got the attention of execs at Showtime. The following September, Tim Allen starred in his own cable TV special, Men Are Pigs.
I backed that turbo diesel up that Sears, and I bought some too. I got those needle nose, vice gripping monk. Boy, I got 3/4 driving, socket pulling, ratchet head, steel tube, and breaker jig, my flat dado head cut right.
Coming up, Tools come to primetime.
And said, this is a clever idea. And then they said, that's such a clever idea, why don't you play Turner and Hooch? What?
And later,
girls would start screaming when he was announced. He was beginning to become, quote, a teen idol.
I don't like magazines that ask me personal questions. Psychology Today will always have a little test in there. Are you schizophrenic? Are you paranoid? Who the hell wants to know?
In 1990, 37-year-old Tim Allen was a comic on fire. Tim's hilarious stand-up routine had everyone buzzing, including the brass at Disney.
I got tools to fix tools, folks. I got them all. Most of them rubber-coated for safety. You got to have that. Plus, I got plenty of duct tape. A shop ain't a shop without duct tape. I don't know what you use it for. Apparently, if you can't fix it, duck it. That's right.
We fell out of our chairs. You could see, just in its rawest form, just this extraordinary talent. And I mean, it was electrifying.
Studio execs wanted to turn the unknown comedian into their latest sitcom star.
They'd seen the Showtime special I did about garages and tools and said, this is a clever idea. And then they said, that's such a clever idea, why don't you play Turner and Hooch? What? I do this bit about tools and Sears. Yeah. How about Dead Poets Society? Huh?
Allen wasn't interested in rehashing roles created by Tom Hanks and Robin Williams.
He said, I want to find a writer, I want to find a partner, you know, that can allow me to be me.
As it turned out, a trio of veteran writers and producers, Matt Williams, David McFadden, and Carmen Finestra, were on the hunt for a new project.
We were looking as a theme, father as hero, something positive about men and dads.
Katzenberg called me in, showed me a tape of this guy. Said, "This guy's Tim Allen. I think he's really funny. Why don't you do a series with him?"
Williams remembered the last time he worked with a comic. He produced the hit sitcom Roseanne before being forced out in an ugly battle with the show's star.
And I said, "I don't want to work with another stand-up." I said, "No." And he said, "Well, I think he's funny." And I said, I really don't have any desire to work with another stand-up. And to Katzenberg's credit, he pressed, he said, "Just have lunch with him."
Williams and Allen clicked right away. They traded stories about growing up in the Midwest and agreed to team up.
When Matt came back from that lunch, he said, "This is going to be a top 10 show."
In the summer of 1990, the pilot script began taking shape. The title, Hammer Time, eventually became Home Improvement.
Matt didn't want to name the show after Tim. Why empower somebody by putting their name on the show? He feared that, and I think that was one of the reasons that we didn't want to call it the Tim Allen Show.
Home Improvement featured Tim Taylor, the macho host of a fictional TV show called Tool Time. Casting for the pilot kicked off in early 1991. The role of Tim's no-nonsense wife, Jill, was crucial.
We knew you had to have a strong wife up against Tim, to go toe-to-toe with a guy that was, a grunting, male, power tool fanatic.
Producers saw a bunch of actresses, including Bonnie Hunt. They finally picked 38-year-old Frances Fisher. At the time, Fisher was best known as Clint Eastwood's girlfriend. Finding Tim's three sons came next. 9-year-old Zachary Ty Bryan nailed the role of the eldest boy, Brad. Bryan was new to L.A. Back home in Colorado, Zach did TV commercials.
My favorite show was a show called Wonder Years with Fred Savage. I used to watch that show religiously. I used to tell my mom, "I want to be an actor," and she was like, "We'll go out there, we'll give it a shot."
Zachary wasn't necessarily the most experienced, and maybe not even the most polished actor we saw, but boy, when this kid walked in the room, he just had some raw charisma. You just fell in love with him.
For middle child Randy Taylor, producers wanted an actor who could convey cocky. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was 9 years old, but looked younger. He grew up outside of Sacramento and appeared in local theater productions before moving on to commercials.
I kind of came to LA by mistake. I just happened to come down here and things started happening.
He seemed perfect for the middle son, the kind of smart guy who mouthed off, middle kid, wants attention. And we brought him into the network. There were 18 people in the room, network executives, studio executives, us, other producers. And this kid was as cool as a cucumber, nailed the scene perfectly. I still remember one of the Disney executives saying, "This kid's going to be a star."
It took a nationwide search to find little Mark Taylor.
The youngest son was going to be the one son that really emulated his dad, looked up to his dad. No matter how his dad screwed up, the young kid saw him as a hero. So you really needed somebody that was gullible and sweet and, not a smart guy, but a kid that could look adoringly on his dad.
6-year-old Terrence Smith came from the San Francisco Bay Area. He had a solid background in modeling and TV commercials. Smith aced his audition scene.
Tim built a treehouse for me. We were admiring it from the ground, and the last question was, "Dad, how do I get up there?" So, the screen test was actually on my 7th birthday. So it was a great birthday present.
The most unusual role in Home Improvement was the Taylor's next-door neighbor, Wilson.
So actually, Tim pitched the idea that he would have a neighbor you only saw from the nose up.
Wilson was something I've had in my mind forever, is the grandpa, the uncle, and the father that I've lost. I've lost all these great men in my life, and he's wrapped up in all those, non-judgmental, a sweet man, really.
An actor named John Bedford Lloyd tried out for the role of Tim's assistant, Glenn. But that part was still up in the air.
I said, there's this other role I think you really should look at. It's the neighbor, it's Wilson. He's behind a fence all the time. So we read the role. This guy he was more about Tim's age. We said, this is great, offered him the role. We move along, la-da-da. A week before we're going to shoot this show, we get a call from his agent saying, he's not going to do the show. He's asking me, what do you mean I'm behind a fence? I said, well, did we explain that? He's behind a fence. No way is my client going to do a show where he's behind a fence.
Producers scrambled to find a replacement. 48-year-old actor Earl Hindman boasted a long list of credits, including a 9-year stint on the soap Ryan's Hope. Hindman stepped up to the plate and walked away with the job.
And Earl, shall I say, hit the ball deep into center field over the fence. He was just spectacular.
There's nothing deep about it, I didn't think it was going to, I didn't give a snowball's chance, when we started. I said, who's going to watch that?
Next on the casting list, the small but flashy role of Lisa.
The Tool-Time girl we originally envisioned was going to be this kind of young college student who was a psychology major, and she was very forthright about her feelings about sexuality and personal relations. And she was someone that was going to make Tim uncomfortable, like, I just want to talk about tools, And we actually saw Ashley Judd, who was 19 at that time. I mean, we flipped. We said, this is just who we're looking for. She's perfect. And her agent kind of said, I don't know, we think Ashley's going to have a movie career.
Judd followed the advice of her agent and passed. Enter 23-year-old Pamela Anderson. Pamela was discovered by an advertising exec 3 years earlier while attending a pro football game in Vancouver. The small-town beauty from Comox, British Columbia, hit big as the face and body of Labatt's beer. Then, Playboy came calling. Pam's next move was to go in and try out for a new sitcom.
I remember someone yelling over a balcony saying, Pamela, you're early for your Hammer Time audition. I said, MC Hammer's doing a video? And they're like, no, it's Tim Allen. I'm like, who's Tim Allen? They're like, no, they have an 8x10. Tim Allen, the comic. I'm like, no, sorry, not getting it.
But producers got it. They knew they had their Tool-Time girl.
I'm always reminded of what Audrey Meadows said about Marilyn Monroe. What happened when she came into a room full of men. She said it was like dogs leaping around after they see a steak. Pam had it.
Coming up, turmoil on the set.
She's gone. That's how they did it.
And later.
So they went and found her ID and then really freaked out.
Rehearsals for the pilot episode of Home Improvement kicked off in April 1991. All eyes were on the show's rising star, 37-year-old comedian Tim Allen.
I'm not sure what. Bob, if I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I was on a set, and all they really worried about is could I remember lines. They would never tell me that, so they sent me to all these coaches and theater schools, and it was the weirdest thing in the world. And finally, one guy said, they just want to make sure that you can actually remember lines. And well, just ask me. Wouldn't that be easier?
We knew that Tim had very little acting experience, none to speak of, really, and that we knew he was taking acting lessons. But what we sort of did as a safeguard is, in the pilot, we wrote everything toward Tim. In other words, Tim didn't do exposition. Tim reacted to exposition. Tim just needed to be able to react to what was going on.
Allen did a lot more than react. At a read-through in front of a studio audience, he got plenty of laughs. But Tim's better half, Frances Fisher, fell flat.
For some reason, when Jill, the wife, said to Tim, don't touch the dishwasher, because he was going to power up the dishwasher, somehow with Frances it seemed more like a plea of, please stop, I've asked you to, don't do this. And the audience felt, I think, uncomfortable.
So long, Frances Fisher. Hello, Patricia Richardson.
And we went, wow, who is that? This strong, funny woman who just tosses lines off, very natural. We went crazy.
The videotape only told part of the story. 40-year-old Richardson had an impressive resume that included stints on Broadway and plenty of TV commercials.
What's wrong? Maybe he's wet.
You just changed him.
Mrs. Appleby, I get so worried about him being wet and uncomfortable.
During the mid to late 80s, Patricia co-starred in a string of failed TV shows. In early 1991, Richardson and her husband, actor Ray Baker, welcomed twins. Patricia planned to return to acting, but she was surprised when Disney execs called a few weeks later. They wanted her to start work on Home Improvement right away, with a comic she never heard of.
And I was like, no, those things never work. And I don't want to do another sitcom. And I really don't want to be a mom, it's the thankless mom part. And I'm huge, and I can't work right now, and I'm nursing twins.
The actress reluctantly agreed to meet with the producers.
She was about 30 pounds heavier than she had been in this tape we saw, simply because she had just given birth to twins. But frankly, she looked great. She actually looked like a real person, a real mom, a real woman.
And then I read the script, and I think the script's all right. And in the script, the woman has lots to do, and that she's going to get a job eventually, and they really want it to be about both people, and it's not going to just be his show, and, all this stuff, and that they'll make it so that I can have the babies in the dressing room, and they'll do everything they can.
And the other thing that worked for us was that Pat's husband, Ray, was in a sitcom called Down Home, very good show, but not doing well in the ratings and looked like it wasn't going to last past the year. So Pat was kind of even saying out loud, well, I don't know if Ray is going to be working past there, and, money has to come in.
Richardson signed on, but producers faced one more hurdle, telling Tim.
They just came to me on a Thursday before we're going to shoot on Friday, and they, do you want a drink? Not a typical thing at 3 in the afternoon. Of course, I said yes, and I said, what would be I'm sitting there thinking, what is the problem? I thought I was going. And they said, we'd like to have a new wife for you.
Now, Tim was shocked and devastated. I think he was waiting for us to say, and we got Jay Leno to play you. But, he was really, really shaken by that.
I've already made friends with Frances, and she has a name on a dressing room door. That would be kind of rude, wouldn't it? She's gone. That's how they did it.
The Taylor boys also had concerns about their new mom.
They went with a blonde mother at first, and so they picked me and Zach because we were both blonde, and kind of made Jonathan's hair kind of in between. And then halfway through the pilot, they brought in Patricia Richardson. We were all a little scared. We're like, wait a second, now we got 2 brown-haired parents and 3 blonde kids. But they assured us, no, they're not gonna replace anybody.
The final piece of the casting puzzle, Tim's sidekick, Glenn. Producers wanted 39-year-old Stephen Tobolowsky for the role, but Tobolowsky was committed to a film project.
We so much liked him, we said, tell you what, you do that. We'll write a different guy into the pilot. We'll give him a name, let's say Al or something, and you go do the movie, and then we'll put you in, as soon as the show gets on the air, if it does. And that was kind of our agreement.
The search for Al eventually led to a struggling 35-year-old married actor named Richard Karn.
I'd spent like 11 years in New York doing theater and off-Broadway, Broadway regional commercials, and we're here for like a year, maybe almost a year and a half, and I'd gotten this job, this great job being an apartment manager. So we're doing that, and we're auditioning for whatever we can.
Karn got a lucky break while attending traffic school. He sat next to an agent who told him about Home Improvement. Karn knew the producers from a play he'd done years earlier and called. As a courtesy, they invited Richard in, even though the part was already cast.
I'm going, oh man, this was my shot. I could do this job, but they've already got this other guy. And about 6 weeks later, Carmen calls me. Carmen Finestra calls me, and he goes, so Rick, I hope you haven't shaved off that beard. And I said, yeah, I still got it. And he goes, well, it seems that Steven's got a job, and we need someone to fill in for him. And I go, fill in for him in rehearsals? Well, we need you for the pilot. And I'm going, a pilot? Yes, I got the pilot. Well, you don't have the show, just the pilot.
We auditioned Rick, brought him to the network. I mean, as far as the network was concerned, this was going to be a quick yes, because this is not the guy that's going to be in the show. He's fine, he's got a beard, looks okay.
And I'm going, oh man, I get to do the pilot, but I'm not going to get to do the show. Well, maybe this will lead to something else.
At the Disney lot, Patricia Richardson arrived for her first rehearsal.
Tim was like, because he's an inexperienced actor, and he had gotten used to Frances. And let's face it, Frances was living with Clint Eastwood. So, you know, Tim was really liking Clint Eastwood hanging around, you know? He was really digging that. And so now, you know, off goes skinny little Frances, who kissed real good and was hanging around with Clint. And in comes big, nursing, lactating Pat, you know? So he's like, and here comes me, you know, and I'm like, you know? And so he's like, how did this happen?
But as the cast rushed through rehearsals, things began to click between Richardson and Allen.
Tim is just sort of doing his thing, and he is hysterically funny. I mean, I didn't expect him to be such a good actor. I thought, oh, well, stand up, you know. He's not going to listen. He's not going to respond. He's not going to hear me. He's not going to see me. He's, you know, totally opposite.
She got it right away. Where Frances and I was much more dramatic, Pat got this antagonism with me right away.
It made just a huge difference, and it's the chemistry, I think, that happens. Frances was a wonderful lady. It just ended up that Patricia was a better Jill.
Tape finally rolled on April 19th, 1991.
3, 2.
Any fears about Tim Allen, the actor, quickly vanished.
The charm that was coming out of Tim was just amazing. You know, he said, wow, this guy is good.
The pilot went off with a bang.
That is a man's dishwasher.
We blew up the dishwasher in the first episode. The audience just went crazy.
People laughed so hard. I would say a line back to Tim, and there was like a 13-second pause while people laughed. My husband came backstage and he said, well, you know, get ready, because this is the show you're going to do for 7 years. And I went, no way. And he went, yeah, it's funny.
Hopes were high for Home Improvement. Tim also felt sure the series would be picked up for the fall.
As soon as there's 9 Disney lawyers on the set, you know things are going well, because they were armed and dangerous and just kept staring at me with pens. The pilot, it hooked right away.
Coming up, a house of cards.
I said, the worst thing we could do is try and hide this.
Right on the set, stand by, please.
Hello, dude. What's happening, man? Like, totally.
In the summer of 1991, cameras rolled on the first season of Home Improvement.
Come on, let's get back to our salute to lubricants.
Richard Karn's temporary gig as Tim's assistant was extended after a call from one of the producers.
Well, we need you for the first episode. Well, maybe the first 2 episodes. And I go, no, really? The first 2 episodes? Well, where's the other guy? He goes, well, he's got another job.
And we kept telling Rick, you know, it's just going to be temporary, you know, because Steven's coming back.
All right, Al, shut me in.
Gladly, Tim.
Tim Allen had a different idea.
The minute I read with Richard, I said, there's really no reason to get that other guy who couldn't make it out here anyway. He was so busy, he couldn't make it for our pilot. He said, this is the guy right here.
In the 4th episode, Karn kicked down the door.
Tim has some joke. It was something like, Al, do you think they call it molding because it's been in the refrigerator too long? You know, and the audience laughs. And I just looked at him. And then the audience laughed again. And there was this throwaway line. I don't think so, Tim. And that got a big laugh.
The place went up for grabs. Big, huge laugh. And that was the day we said, wow, this is the guy. Rick is in.
But shortly before Home Improvement was set to debut, tabloid reporters began digging into Tim Allen's past. The comic caught wind of the investigation and told producers. It was the first they heard of Tim's 1978 drug bust and prison term.
We had kind of asked when we met Tim, you know, just anything we should know, and no. I mean, I don't know if Tim was thinking that was so long ago. I don't think Tim was going, no, not at all. No, that wasn't what he was doing. In his mind, he hadn't really, you know, thought that was a problem, I guess.
Before we talked to Tim or anyone, I said, the worst thing we could do is try and hide this. And I said, let's talk to ABC, let's talk to Disney, and I think what Tim should do instantly is go out public and explain his story and get it out there.
Alan agreed to come clean.
Tim said, you know, I have to have integrity about this. You know, I'm not proud of what happened in my past, but I'm not going to hide it.
I think by Tim just coming out straightforwardly and doing it in a very almost noble way, just saying, here I am, take your shots, people just kind of backed off and said, okay, do your series.
Episode 1 of Home Improvement aired, as scheduled, on September 17th, 1991.
I know it just needs more power.
Every time you fix something, the fire department shows up.
But this would be different because I got this
No,
positive
no,
power.
I am not gonna let you ruin a perfectly good dishwasher just so you can get out your tools and play.
6 horse.
No.
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 Play? I host my own home improvement show.
Don't touch the dishwasher.
Some critics weren't thrilled with the show, but viewers loved it.
Home Improvement struck a chord with audiences because Tim Allen was a great talent. He was funny. He added something new and fresh. That whole power tools and men are, you know, making fun of that whole masculine, overly male mentality.
When was the last time you drove me to an emergency room?
The 80s.
Oh, you mess up one decade, you never hear the end of it.
The comic turned actor especially wowed his co-stars.
He was a better actor than half the people I worked with in New York, who'd been, you know, studying acting all their lives.
Perfect.
Hello, Jill. Hello, Alibaba.
Dad. He's an innkeeper.
Yeah.
Where are Mary Joseph staying this year? What inn? Caesar's Palace?
By the end of the first season in May 1992, Home Improvement held steady at number 4 in the ratings. Still, execs decided to shake things up that fall.
Hi, I'm Tim Allen.
And Pat Richardson. Watch us this fall, Wednesday night, 9 o'clock, new time slot.
The move put Home Improvement on a collision course with Seinfeld, NBC's critically acclaimed but struggling sitcom.
It looked like we were going to have a boxing match because it was in USA Today. I remember it was our two heads, Seinfeld versus Home Improvement.
In round 1, Home Improvement scored a knockout. 17 million viewers to less than 12 million for Seinfeld. 4 months later, NBC moved Seinfeld to Thursday night, where the show about nothing soon became something special.
When we kicked them off of Wednesday night, there was no big thing in the next day in the newspaper. Oops, Jerry lost, and we were terribly wrong about it. But that's the media.
Stand by.
But another drama unfolded on the set of Home Improvement.
That's right, Different Tools is proud to present Tim the Toolman Taylor.
25-year-old tool-time girl Pam Anderson told producers she wanted her tiny role beefed up.
There was no question that Pam was frustrated by not getting more to do. Unfortunately, we just weren't in a position to do that. The show was about Tim, his wife, the kids.
Pam's character was never anything but an object. And because Pam had done all this Playboy stuff, and they were really worried about criticism of being sexist on the show, they really kept Pam to as much of a minimum as they could anyway. So she was really basically, you know, like a piece of furniture on tool time that walked in and walked out.
Pam didn't just sit around. She landed the role of lifeguard C.J. Parker on the syndicated series Baywatch.
I can't believe they're building an oil platform off Zuma, even if it is underwater. It's not even about the view, it's about the environment. I was doing Home Improvement and Baywatch at the same time, because really I only had one line of show on, you know, here you go, Tim, here you go, Tim, here you go, Tim, or my it's tool time, whatever. So they said, you know what, Pamela, we know you have to make a choice between Baywatch and Home Improvement because it's getting a little bit hectic. We're going to give you more to do. And I was like, really? And it was like, here you go, Tim. Have a nice day. That was about it. I was like, okay, I'm going to the beach. I'll see you at the beach.
In June 1993, Pam hung up her tool belt. Producers immediately began searching for a new tool-time girl.
We saw tons and tons and tons of the most beautiful actresses you can imagine, and none of them were anybody Tim liked.
Tim's idea of what he wanted to go for was somebody that logistically could be on a tool calendar.
Tim kept thinking of this person who had She had been in a previous episode.
Could you put my last name too?
You know, my wife is due back. She's coming up.
Kiki Von Furstenwell and Shine Law.
Debbie Dunning was a 27-year-old former California beauty queen. Debbie's resume also included bit parts on shows like Married with Children.
Tim liked her already. He said, you know, I'd like to work with her, and, you know, we had no problem with that. Network had no problem with that, so Debbie came in, and it was a great spirit.
But Dunning almost blew the audition when she showed up looking a little too hot.
When I did it up, I had my hair curly, I had sexy clothes on, but that was the part I had played prior, and that wasn't what they were talking about. What do you mean? Well, they wanted you girl next door, lip gloss, you know, t-shirt and jeans. Oh, yeah, I can do that. So, boy, I showed up the next day, jeans and a t-shirt, you know, girl next door. Does everybody know what time it is?
Tool time!
That's right, Binford Tools is proud to present Tim the Tool Man Taylor! Woo!
Season 3 kicked off in September 1993. Home Improvement delivered top 10 ratings week after week. But at awards time, the Television Academy seemed to look down on the popular sitcom.
Home Improvement was not really a kind of an Emmy sort of show. It doesn't push the envelope. It's not horribly edgy. It's just really good at being a family comedy. And family comedies, especially with kids, are ignored by the TV Academy.
On Emmy night, the gang from Home Improvement felt like second-class citizens.
When you get there, they kind of put you in places where they think if you're going to win, you sit further up front. But we were behind the cameras, and if we had won, it would have taken another 5 minutes for the show. Seinfeld's down front, Cheers is down front. You know, we're so far over to the side, it was ridiculous.
Eventually you go, well, it's just difficult to not come off with sour grapes. It wasn't in the cards for us. So what we did was we had the homies.
Carmen Finestra created the homie, and there were a number of different categories chosen that were very similar to those that you would see at the Emmys. Everybody on the show was a winner.
They were hilarious. They were a bolt and a giant screw, but of course they were hugely phallic. And of course I still have mine.
Coming up, Hail, the Teen Idols.
Oh, that Jonathan, oh my God, I love him so much.
And later,
she was one person you could really believe when they said, I'm walking, they were walking.
Home Improvement launched Season 4 in September 1994, and the strong ratings continued.
Once you know what you're doing, anything is possible.
Part of the show's magic came from the elaborate contraptions created by special effects wizards at Disney Studios.
Everybody on the lot was used to doing major motion pictures. In television, you don't have months to do it. We need a electromagnet that can pull me out of frame and stick my teeth into a box of nails by Friday. Okay.
Fans even requested blueprints for some of Tim's inventions.
Nothing healthier than Swedish vodka.
Unless it's a Swedish massage.
Milton, how about a back rub?
We had a recliner toilet, which was, people actually thought, that's a good idea. So that's actually not a real good idea.
Tim brought his frenetic energy to the set every day, though he was running on empty. Alan spent most of his 3-month summer hiatus shooting the big screen comedy, The Santa Claus. He was also writing a book.
What were you thinking? I would have 4 minutes to breathe, and then they'd take me into a room, and then I got to start finishing chapter 6, and then I had that coming back. It was way too much to do.
We're pretty much in agreement that this family is complete, right?
Yeah. No more weirdos, no.
Co-star Pat Richardson had her hands full too, with an avalanche of fan mail.
And some of it was really sad because a lot of it was from children that were not getting enough attention and, you know, obviously identified with his family. I got a lot of mail from young men, which I thought was so bizarre. I kept thinking these are a lot of men with mother problems.
Jill, you don't understand about the pain down there.
Whoa!
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't understand about pain down there. I, who had 3 children ripped from my loins, and was laughingly described as natural childbirth.
She was the perfect kind of wisecracking, cynical foil for him. She just, just feminine enough, but always right there, in his face if she needed to be. If he had a kind of a weak actress opposite him, the show wouldn't have been nearly the same.
Like her character Jill, Patricia wasn't shy. Producers had promised to flesh out her character, and Richardson pushed them to deliver.
I began to be frustrated with, I had no friend, I had no job, I had no life outside of the house. I never had a scene without Tim in it. I never had a scene alone with the children. I had never had a scene alone with Wilson. I never had any place to go.
Pat was always fighting for her role, too, because, I think she felt like, okay, I'm in this show where it's Tim's show, but I'm the co-star of the show, and I want the writers to realize that.
This is what I got over and over again. But the audience loves you. I go, if they love me so much, then let's develop the character more and give me more to do. And but they love you. But then why don't you develop her? But they love you.
Richardson pushed for more diverse storylines. She brought her own experiences as a mom to every story meeting.
She would literally sit there and say, no, mother would not say this. This is not realistic. We have to change this. And come back on Tuesday with a new script and it would be a lot better.
Pat would push Tim to do more. I think sometimes Tim was actually afraid of Pat.
I don't think there's any fun in life without a few arguments, Bailey. I like antagonizing people. I like people antagonizing me, as long as I don't mind being fired. I wish I could do that. I wish I could fire him.
There'd always be compromise. So by Friday, we're out there smiling and everybody got their way and, it was good.
That's funny.
Tim Allen played an almost perfect dad to his TV kids. But when the cameras stopped rolling, the mad comic showed up.
I mean, it was more like a crazy uncle. But he did, look out for us and make sure we were always treated well.
I'm the worst nightmare as an uncle. Doing arm farts in the back with kids. All right, this is, all right, no. A little moisture. And their parents had nothing, they could say nothing. I'm the star of the show.
Want me to just read this?
Yeah, just read the problem.
Okay, sure.
By law, kids were required to attend classes on the lot. Between takes and lessons, the boys looked for ways to blow off steam.
At first, it was kind of difficult because Disney didn't really have any place or facilities on the lot for kids to play. And after a little while, they had wheeled in a basketball hoop, but they put it in between the stages in a fire lane where trucks were going past. And then we're getting a little upset with us that, they were getting complaints from truck drivers that we were in their way.
Kids, get down here. Daddy wants to tell you how much he loves you.
The young actors were catching fire themselves, especially with young female fans.
I was doing this thing at Universal Studios, and on some off time I was playing in one of their playgrounds. This whole group of cheerleaders recognized me, and I just kind of got engulfed in cheerleaders. I ran. So it became this sort of cat and mouse game, and all of a sudden everyone, this whole group of cheerleaders was chasing after me through Universal Studios.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas quickly became the home improvement heartthrob.
All the kids that I would run into that, they would go, oh, that Jonathan, oh my God, I love him so much. And, everywhere you'd go, people would go oh God, is that Jonathan? Oh, is he as cute? Is he as cute as he seems on TV?
Where it got a little more difficult is when the bags and boxes of fan mail used to arrive. And gifts started coming in, and they were just the mailroom. We had to set up a whole group of people just to take care of this fan mail situation.
Girls would start screaming when he was announced. He was beginning to become, quote, a teen idol.
I was in St. Patrick's Cathedral, actually. My mom was showing me how to light the candle and that, and, this person comes up, could you sign this, please? I was like, okay, let's go out of here, because I don't want, a big old lightning bolt to come down, thank you very much.
By this point, Jonathan had an established track record with Disney. He provided the voice of young Simba in the blockbuster hit The Lion King. The film was released in the summer of 1994. At the same time, Jonathan began shooting another feature, Man of the House, opposite Chevy Chase. Jonathan's TV brothers found it hard to keep up.
So the others felt jealousy because this kid was a natural, he just was a natural talent. I mean, he didn't have to study. He didn't, you know, he just had it. And then, you know, suddenly he became a heartthrob, and it's like, you know, what are we supposed to do?
No, I was never competitive. I mean, Jonathan, you know, Jonathan had the total teen heartthrob thing. He was very sought after for a long time. I was happy for him.
We supported him in his career, and he was supportive of ours, so it wasn't a big deal at all.
The kids weren't going to come to you and say, I want more stories, so the parents would call you up and they say, well, we have some really exciting ideas for Zach this year, and, you know, can you meet with us?
I think there was a feeling that, you know, don't forget my boy, you know, he can do blah, blah, blah.
We were trying to get our work done, and then you get a call saying, you know, Taron and his parents want to meet with you about Taron stories. And you'd go, oh, God.
When it came to the young cast members' salaries, Disney kept a very tight rein.
Anytime the kids tried to renegotiate, they held fake auditions for kids. And then the kids would just go, okay, we'll take whatever you want. So they kind of treated the kids as second-class citizens in a way, you know, which is odd for Disney.
Karn also fought for more money. He began doing ads and commercials, but needed the studio's permission to wear his trademark plaid shirt.
That was kind of how they supplied some of how little they paid me on Home Improvement. They go, well, we're letting you do these commercials, which will be the same amount if we gave you a raise. It makes sense in an alternate universe.
The cast member who never complained was the one who got the least face time.
Well, I must get back to my chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Well, it's great because it's the best part I've ever had, just about, you know, in terms of everything, in terms of exposure, in terms of interplay with other people, other actors, good money, just it's everything is good about it.
All the actors wanted more stories, and Earl either wanted less or never bothered us with it. We thought he was so good that we made him do bigger stories.
You know, for example, when I was young, I had to choose between going to Oxford or becoming a professional mime.
It was a challenge coming up with new ways to obscure Wilson's face.
He'd go off. Sometimes he'd go, well, why don't we just put a bird on my head so we can change? Because he was so sick of hiding his face. As his mother said, you've been working 30 years, and now the most famous that you've ever done, you got to hide your face from your dear mother. Your beautiful face, you can't see your face.
So, folks, I'm going to show you that face. I'm tired of not being like everybody else on this show. I want to have the same respect everyone else does, so I am going to just exhibit myself. Oh, no. It doesn't go any higher.
On the other side of the fence, a face everybody knew. Or did they? Fans were treated to a very different Tim Allen when his book, Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man, hit stores in November 1994.
It's the real scoop. You know, I will explain how men flirt, where you can hide stuff from your husband if you want. If you don't want him to ever look at it, put it in your purse. Because there's no real man out there that will actually open a purse.
The book quickly shot to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. That December, The Santa Claus opened as the #1 box office draw. Home Improvement also finished first in the ratings. Suddenly, Tim Allen was a triple threat.
Lesser men would have certainly had, their heads would have grown 4 times its normal size, but Tim was cool about it. He was excited. He was like a kid about it. Hey, I got the #1 movie, #1 book, and #1 TV show. This is great.
But life wasn't so hot for Patricia Richardson. Her 13-year marriage to actor Ray Baker fell apart.
It was a difficult time for her. We were aware that she was really having some struggle, but she never missed a performance, and it never appeared or was in any of her work. She was just very, very professional.
Richardson filed for divorce in August 1995, citing irreconcilable differences. The couple remained friends and agreed to share custody of their 3 children.
I'm very lucky in that I still get to see my kids a lot, and my kids are very lucky because they still get to have both parents.
Coming up, more trouble for Tim.
The phone rings, and Tim's just been arrested with a DUI, and what are we going to do?
Home Improvement kicked off the fall of 1995 with some real firepower. Gadget-loving Tim Taylor got behind the wheel of the ultimate toy, an M1 Abrams tank.
The Marines let me drive a tank, inexplicably, without any type of, sure, go ahead.
Other branches of the U.S. military wanted in on the action too. Tim Allen was happy to oblige.
Any chance I could to get the show to go on location on a military base, I always push for it, because I would get to run equipment, shoot guns, fly airplanes.
Allen's enthusiasm got the better of him during a meet and greet on board the U.S. Navy aircraft carrier Constellation.
We're going to be on a transport plane getting shot off a carrier at an unbelievable amount of G's. But before we go, the Navy prepares a huge VIP breakfast for us. So they've got eggs, and they got sausage, and they got bacon, and all this stuff. So my co-writer and I, we have like 2 pieces of fruit and some oatmeal. Tim eats the whole breakfast. We get shot up, it's over. He just loses all his breakfast right there.
That November, Tim took another flight of fancy, this time as the voice of astronaut Buzz Lightyear in the Disney animated feature Toy Story.
Well, I did it so it would make me crazy. I've loved cartoons, and especially Disney cartoons, since I was a kid, and any chance to do this, and when they showed me I get to be a spaceman, hey, I'm in.
Toy Story's astronomical box office take eventually totaled more than $350 million. But while Tim celebrated, his Home Improvement co-star, Debbie Dunning, wrestled with a secret. She was pregnant. The father, former Olympic volleyballer Steve Timmons. Debbie worried that she would be replaced on the show. Finally, she talked to Tim.
I told him, and he said he was really glad I told him then, because there was this really hot number in New York that he'd had his eye on.
She wasn't going anywhere, but she didn't know it.
If Tim was okay with it, we would be okay with it. And Tim loved her, as he loved the rest of the cast, and said, you know, we're going to find a way to make this work.
Heidi, the Tool Time Girl, was overdue for an overhaul.
I think that people probably wrote in and wanted to know what's going on with Heidi. I mean, what does she do? She just shows up, introduces the show, she's always in a good mood, and then she leaves. And so finally, she kind of evolved. She got married and, you know, had a kid.
Producers worked Dunning's pregnancy into the storyline when season 6 launched in September 1996. Heidi had a little girl. In real life, Dunning also gave birth to a baby girl, Spencer, in December. That same month, producers clashed with execs at Disney, which also owned ABC. The creators of Home Improvement claimed they suffered from a below-market deal.
This show was a big enough hit that another network might have paid more when its time was up, that you could renew it on NBC or CBS, and they would have paid higher, but Disney never bothered to get those bids, so it was a monopoly type of situation.
In February 1997, producers sued the studio. Disney denied any interference and claimed the deal with producers was one of the richest in television history.
We reached a settlement, which all felt, you know, okay, we'll go with this. One which, of course, nobody ever can talk about, and, you know, so that was that.
For the season 6 finale, a familiar face made a surprise appearance.
Does everybody know what time it is? Lisa! Hey! Oh my gosh! Look at you! You look great!
Baywatch babe and former Tool Time girl, Pam Anderson, returned as a very special guest star.
Well, I invited her, but I thought, you know, she's become like mega star. Like, all of Europe knows her, and every federal penitentiary's got pictures of her.
I talked to Tim on the phone, and he goes, you know, it'd be really fun if you came back. And I said, really? You don't think anyone would mind? I mean, that would be, you'd have 2 tool girls. And he goes, yeah, we can make something fun of it.
As you all know, Lisa has been at school learning to be an emergency medical technician. Well, you've certainly come to the right show.
Pam helped keep the Home Improvement ratings machine rolling. The show finished season 6 at number 9.
Congratulations!
During hiatus, Tim Allen returned home to Detroit. Following a round of golf at an area country club, Allen was pulled over for speeding. Cops asked Tim to take a routine sobriety test. He failed.
Phone rings. Tim's just been arrested with a DUI, and what are we going to do, and how are we going to do the show, and all this stuff.
Allen pled guilty, paid a $500 fine, and was placed on probation for 1 year. Tim also issued a public statement, apologizing for what he said was an inexcusable lapse in judgment. The arrest didn't make a dent in Tim's career. In October 1997, Allen renewed his home improvement contract and received a raise to a staggering $1.25 million per episode. Suddenly, 44-year-old Tim Allen was the highest paid actor on TV. Coming up, Unhappy Home.
Do I want the writers to like me, or do I want to have to go out there and do crap?
Welcome back.
In September 1997, Home Improvement launched its 7th season. The series still ranked in the top 10, but after 150 episodes, the cast found the plots frustratingly familiar.
And I'd come in and do that. Boy, what smells in this room? Oh, it's this script. And I'd make a joke, but it was literally they were running out of ideas and were rehashing stuff. We've already done this. We did this in episode 16.
Patricia Richardson also spoke up.
I was confronted with, okay, do I want the writers to like me, or do I want to have to go out there and do crap? And it became easier for me to say, okay, guys, what are you doing? Are we writing this whole scene about a joke? Is this whole scene just about setting up this bad joke that anybody can see coming a million miles away? Because that's what started to happen. Or are we writing towards a story? Is there a story?
What are you talking about?
The writers responded with a series of issue-heavy scripts.
We're going to try to deal with the boys coming of age, which means they're going to be involved with the same things that kids out there are: drugs, premarital sex, and all these things. We can't ignore that these happen. We're going to cover them in the lighthearted way the Taylors would.
In an episode titled What a Drag, the storyline centers around drugs.
Oh my God, this is marijuana. Do you think that this belongs to one of our boys?
Well, not unless we have a chipmunk with glaucoma.
Jill and Tim then confront their oldest son, Brad, who cops to smoking pot.
Is this the only drug that you're doing?
Yes.
How much do you smoke?
I don't know, not that much.
Once a week, once a month, what?
I don't know, Mom. When I go to parties, I mean, it's just a way to kick back and mellow out every once in a while.
I see. So you kick back and mellow out to your car, get behind the wheel, and then mellow yourself right into a telephone pole?
I think that was one of the most important episodes we ever filmed. And I was used to getting fan mail from, 14 to 18-year-old girls, But I got a lot of fan mail at that time from moms and dads that were just like, it kind of enlightened them, It kind of helped them deal with their own situation.
The brass at ABC continued to push the issue button. One exec suggested a show about drunk driving.
I said, we can't do that episode. And he said, well, why not? I said, Tim just got a DUI. If we do that episode and he lectures his kids that you shouldn't drive drunk, he's going to seem like the biggest hypocrite in the world. So we didn't do that episode.
Producers did agree to take on a dicey issue involving the Taylors' youngest son, Mark. The teen rebels by wearing goth makeup, playing in a grunge rock band, and making some very bizarre home movies.
I need a potion.
What is your pleasure, Clark?
Something that will make my family look as weird as they think I am.
Number 6.
They just didn't really know what to do with the character. I'd grown out of the original, mold of, okay, he's the younger brother that the other two pick on, and, kind of the cute, sweet one.
You're gonna be a dork your whole life?
As I got older, that didn't really work. So they already had the jock and the smart aleck, so they didn't really know what to do.
Unfortunately, that didn't seem to work that well either.
Still, Home Improvement held on to viewers. But producers wondered how long they could hold down the cast.
Oh, there was tons of tension. There was tons of tension because it was always, are they happy? Do they want to leave? Is Pat happy with her part this week? Does Tim think the show's funny enough? One kid feeling eclipsed by the other kid, that the kid had more storylines. Richard Karn, his part's not big enough.
Only Earl Hindman did his thing and never complained.
Why are you on the fence, so to speak?
Earl just went, I'm just glad we're getting a check.
Earl was living in Los Angeles by himself. His wife, who was an Episcopalian priest, lived in the East, so she couldn't come and live in L.A. So Earl basically was a guy that was in L.A. by himself, and he was a faithful man, so he wasn't diverting himself by cheating with women, as some stars do. Earl, on the nights the show wrapped, and we'd go over to the bar to have fun, I mean, he would have fun. And he never drove. He always had somebody drive him home.
What made you decide not to become a mime?
I talked myself out of it.
Tim Allen often joined Hindman at their favorite watering hole. But booze became an issue for Tim. In April 1998, Allen checked himself into a rehab program.
He said, hey, I'll pull up my socks and go do it.
While he was admitting himself for help, the helicopters were flying overhead, the tabloids were running stories about him, and that made it very, very difficult. But he said he just had this resolve where he said, I am not going to let people drive me away from getting help.
Tim stayed for 30 days and cleaned up his act. Meanwhile, 16-year-old Jonathan Taylor Thomas announced he was leaving Home Improvement. Jonathan wanted to focus on his education. He taped his final episode as a series regular in April 1998.
No, I'm not the guilty type. Which is why I have no problem leaving you to go play basketball.
He was always so smart, so intelligent, so wise. He was far beyond his years. I mean, I remember being younger and being like, I was like, this kid is so much smarter than I am. But when he wanted to go to college, it was, you know, that was totally cool with everybody.
Almost everybody.
It's all personal with me. I really, really love Jonathan, and I loved working with him, and I loved him being on the show, and I loved that show. So any kind of separation there felt betrayal. So no matter what it was, no matter if he had a good reason or not, I didn't like it.
Allen liked it even less when he found out Jonathan spent that summer working on a movie, not prepping for college.
Oh my God.
The following season, producers brought Thomas back for a guest spot. Emotions ran high.
You're looking good. Did life treat you well down there in Costa Rica?
Yeah, get outside. Baby Jesus is smoking.
I'll be right back. Look who's here.
Hey, man, what's going on? I'll catch you later.
Okay.
We don't like him. We don't want him around. It's very similar to the real life story. No, it's just he comes in and we've kind of gone on.
Tim told reporters that he was unhappy with some of Jonathan's decisions.
I think Tim reacted very much like a father. When younger kids decide what they want to do and then they change their mind, that's kind of difficult.
I wanted Jonathan on the show. I loved working with him. When I didn't get what I wanted, then I would probably say stuff that I didn't mean, but I did mean it. I just missed the kid, that's all.
Coming up, the bitter end.
He just said, I don't want to do this if this is how it's going to be.
In early 1999, several cast members were on the fence about doing another season of Home Improvement, including Tim Allen. After nearly 8 seasons, the show was still a cash cow, and Disney chairman Joe Roth knew it. Roth wanted to lock in season 9.
He came into my dressing room and dropped a money figure on me that actually I went, what? That came out. I went, oh, that. So I could just buy my own studio then. At the time, it was, and that was the initial offer. And he said, that's how bad we want the show on one more year.
The offer, a record $2 million per episode, $50 million for the season. Disney dangled $25 million in front of Patricia Richardson to lure her back. But Richardson had other concerns.
I was totally willing to leave because it was boring. You know, and if all I was going to do in the prime of my acting career was the same scene over and over and over again, it wasn't worth staying. And we were like, so Tim and I sat down and we said, there's no way to do the show anymore the way it is. Zach's graduating, he's moving, Jonathan's gone. You know, the only way to do it is to totally change the show. We'd have to have them, like, you know, move away and open up a bed and breakfast somewhere or something, or have Tim go back and teach shop. I mean, that was one of the ideas we talked about.
There were other discussions as well.
I was hearing from Tim that Pat wanted more say in who was going to direct the show. She wanted more say in how the shows were going to be written for her. Pat always held the cards because she was very valuable. She knew she was valuable. And if she didn't get what she wanted, she was one person you could really believe when they said, I'm walking, they were walking.
According to Pat, her greatest concern about continuing the series was the quality of the new episodes. She didn't want the legacy to suffer. The 4-time Emmy nominee made a demand she claims was certain to be shot down.
Basically, I just went back to them and said, because I knew that they wouldn't do it, I just said, okay, the only way this is going to happen is you pay me exactly the money you pay him. We're total equals. You pay me exactly the money you pay him. We're executive producers. If you offer him $2 million an episode, you give me $2 million episodes. We're total equal, and I don't do it.
Alan mulled over a proposal to do the sitcom without Pat.
It would be like a weird show, too, because I think I'd have to be a divorced dad, and one of the kids is dead, and I mean, to make all the adjustments necessary so that Pat was happy, it seemed so put on and pretentious, and it was just about money.
Meanwhile, other cast members made demands. Tim couldn't take all the squabbling.
He just said, I don't want to do this if this is how it's going to be. This can't continue.
I flew to New York and stayed in my apartment in New York, and I sat there and thought about, can I do this again, knowing Pat's concerns were just almost impossible to address. I just didn't want money to be the motivator, and it would have been. It was so close. So I called my brother, who's always great about theater, and he's about art, and I said, I can't creatively do this, but I want to walk away. I'd love to do 10 years or whatever it was, but I also like to walk away on top, and we were right on top. You know, and he's going, yeah. What, are you crazy? I didn't expect it. I never expected it. It was so funny. He goes, how bad can 1 year be?
Bad enough. At the People's Choice Awards on January 10th, 1999, Alan announced that Season 8 would be the final season of Home Improvement.
I've been letting my movies go, and they're projects that are sitting, and they need my input, and I got to do one or the other, so I think I'm going to move on a little bit.
I just sat there, and I knew that was a relief on his shoulders, although it's not what he really wanted to do. And his agent just turned around and goes, oh, my gosh.
Fans flooded ABC with letters begging network execs to keep the series on the air. Cast members who threatened to leave had a change of heart.
I don't think they really realized until he said that it was going to be over. And when he said it, I think people started second-guessing their decision to leave and not to come back. They came to him and talked to him, but his words were already been said, so. And Tim doesn't go back on anything.
Cast and crew prepared themselves for the final curtain call.
And I don't think it's sunk into anybody that this is all done. I just asked one of our lead cameramen, does it seem like it's been 8 years? And he said, no, and then he burst into tears. They had to carry him away. None of us want to separate, but it's just time.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas decided not to take part in the big finale.
I asked him if he would do it. He said he would do it. And then, you know, sure enough, in all the talks with his people and blah, 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 no, he didn't. He wasn't going to do it. I don't blame him. I blame the business and what it does to people.
I was just really confused about why he didn't come back for the last show. Never understood what happened.
It wasn't really a big surprise. That's what he wanted to do, and he fulfilled his 7-year contract and wanted to move on.
In April 1999, cameras rolled for episode number 201 on Stage 4 of the Disney lot in Burbank, California.
And I walked out, ladies and gentlemen, does everyone know what time it is? And I walked out and I burst into tears. I didn't think I could go on. You know, Sean Shea, our stage manager, she goes, you all right? And I went, no, I'm not all right. Organized tears. It looked like, it was terrible. I couldn't get it together. I didn't think I could do the show.
He couldn't believe it was over. I don't think he knew what his life was going to be like without the show.
Welcome to Tool Time. I am, well, for the last time, Tim the Tool Man Taylor. And of course, you all know my assistant. I'll be doing infomercials for a living Borland.
Tim was like truly upset the last show because he knew that something special was leaving. But, you know, I'm thinking, well, we could do another season. You know, so why are you so upset?
You're a good neighbor, too. An odd one.
You too.
There were a lot of tears shed that night.
We were saying goodbye to so many of our friends, and you know, really more like a family. You know, a big extended family.
You kind of know that it's the end, and it was very emotional and really hard to get through the episode.
Playing Al was Richard Karn. Wilson was Earl Hindman. Mark was Taryn Noah Smith. Brad was Zachary Ty Bryan. Jill was Patricia Richardson. And Tim is Tim Allen.
It was a great night. It was a sad night.
I'll have a couple of pops and go home tonight and probably have a little empty feeling there for a while, you know, because it's been a great success for all of us, you know.
It might not hit me till August when we traditionally go back. You know, in August, then I'll go, what am I supposed to, I'm supposed to be doing, oh yeah, that's right, I don't have a job.
We all knew that we were moving into another whole place, but it was 8 very fantastic years.
At the wrap party, Tim summed up his feelings for the cast and crew.
If there is ever a battle that I would fight, I wouldn't want anybody else with me than all of you people.
The home improvement family went off to their final wrap party. Back on stage 4, workers were already dismantling the set.
It was like, let's go, move it out. Because a pilot coming in that was going to be shot there, it wasn't like, and it shall remain this way as a memorial to the great work. No, hey, it's a studio, pal. Next.
Coming up, an even sadder end.
We got the call that he had passed.
In April 1999, the cast of Home Improvement said goodbye after 8 blockbuster seasons and went their separate ways. Karen Smith took a break from acting and found love. In April 2000, 16-year-old Smith met artist and chef Heidi Van Pelt. Heidi was exactly twice Taryn's age.
We hit it off right away, and I was wanting someone like her to come into my life. I was kind of asking for it. I was kind of feeling frustrated with where I was at in my life, and I wanted someone that was going to come in and create challenges.
Taryn didn't know how to tell his parents.
I told them that she was younger. She was a little wary about that, but I was like, no, I don't think they're going to handle the 16 years, so I just said that she was 9 years older, which is the same age difference as my parents, actually. So they went and found her ID and then really freaked out.
Smith also clashed with his parents over his trust fund. The young actor wanted full control of his earnings, but he was still a minor. Frustrated, Taryn left home.
I wanted to prove myself to myself, you know, to be able to not, you know, be dependent on and rely on what other people were saying and, you know, just be free. It was fun, you know, I got to do a lot of different things and lived in Kansas for a while, lived on an organic farm.
Taryn married Van Pelt in April 2001. He eventually patched things up with his family and took charge of his money. Then in 2007, Smith and Van Pelt divorced. Today, showbiz is still on the back burner for the youngest Taylor boy.
I'm excited to do something that's not in the business.
Zach Bryan found life after Home Improvement rough.
All the people that were calling and offering movies and this and that, and all of a sudden it kind of comes to an abrupt end. And not just in your working life, but kind of in your social life as well.
It wasn't easy, but Zach managed to keep his career going. with roles on the big and small screen. Then Zach's love life took center stage. In November 2005, he announced his engagement to 23-year-old girlfriend Carly Matros. The pair married in 2007. Brian stayed in touch with his former TV brother, Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Thomas started attending Harvard University in 2000, but he left the Ivy League school to return to acting.
And roll sound. Rolling!
The former teen idol guest starred on TV shows like Smallville and 8 Simple Rules. Then, Thomas went back to college, graduating from Columbia University in 2010.
My moment!
In 2000, Tool-Time girl Debbie Dunning dropped off the Hollywood radar when she became pregnant with her second child.
You love being home, and whether you're doing, little puzzles or watching videos with your kids or teaching them how to play tic-tac-toe, it's just really fun. But I'm back now, just so everybody knows I'm back.
Oh my gosh, the circuitry must be incredibly small. They look like regular sunglasses.
Richard Karn went on to host the popular TV game show Family Feud.
At the time, I had a 4th grader, so you don't want to go out and do, Resident Evil 3. What I like about Family Feud was that it's a game show, but it's also, it's improv theater.
Karn remained with Feud for 4 seasons. In 2006, he left the show, but not the business. Karn continued to make occasional TV appearances. Patricia Richardson also decided to try something different. In 2002, she began a 3-year run playing a doctor on the Lifetime TV drama Strong Medicine.
I was determined not to do another audience show. It was an ensemble show, so I figured that I could do that and still be with my family.
In 2005, Richardson landed a recurring role on the NBC hit The West Wing. Since then, she appeared in several made-for-TV movies. As for Tim Allen, he's been through plenty since Home Improvement ended. In 1999, Tim's wife, Laura, filed for divorce after 15 years of marriage.
Laura stood behind him when he got in trouble as a young guy in prison. She saw what Tim was, and she was very supportive of Tim, always there. She was a great spirit. I enjoyed her. She was a lot of fun.
The stand-up comic turned leading man remained as popular as ever. After leaving the small screen, Allen racked up movie credits in Galaxy Quest, Christmas with the Cranks, and a remake of The Shaggy Dog.
All right, here we go. Let's try rehearsal, folks.
In November 2004, Allen received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
I'm speechless, except again, I'll say to all my family and friends, I'm so happy that you decided to come out and support me on this. And thank you all, everybody.
On October 7th, 2006, Allen married for the second time. The 53-year-old actor wed 39-year-old Jane Hadjic in a private ceremony. Hadjic is an actress who appeared in several of Allen's films.
We look very happy.
We are very happy. Thanks.
The couple became even happier. In March 2009, Tim and Jane welcomed daughter Elizabeth. Meanwhile, Allen beefed up his resume with roles in Wild Hogs and Toy Story 3. After a 12-year break, Tim returned to TV in October 2011. In Last Man Standing, Allen starred as Mike Baxter, a guy's guy often at odds with the women in his family. The sitcom reunited Tim with some of his former Home Improvement cast members.
Richard Karn actually did make an appearance. Our families are still close. We see each other quite a bit. He loved the crew on Home Improvement, those that still made it or still alive, or on Last Man Standing. So it was really wonderful to see him there.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas also popped up on the show as a restaurant owner, opposite his one-time TV dad. As for Earl Hindman, Tim's former co-star and friend, he returned to Connecticut to enjoy life with his family after Home Improvement ended. In early 2003, Hindman delivered an award-winning performance as Julius Caesar at the Theater for a New Audience in New York City. But later that year, Earl discovered he had lung cancer. He lost his battle in December at age 61.
We didn't know he was sick. He wasn't like that, though. He didn't call and say, by the way, I'm sick. It was just so sad.
Earl was not one to to hold back. He lived life hard. He was a guy that went out there and did stuff all his life. He was a drinker and a smoker. What he would love to do is just drive out to the desert to an old hotel, get a bottle of Jack Daniels, and sit on the back porch and watch the sunset.
He was so wonderful to me, the sweetest man, and literally the contact we had at that fence went way beyond, because we'd rehearse all day long, and we'd be talking about a million things at the fence, and we became very close. He was one of my best buds.
Earl, I loved him, yeah. Yeah, good man. Good man. I miss him.
That's right. Wow. Wow. Hi-ho, neighbors.
Today, Earl and the rest of the Home Improvement gang live on in reruns.
My daughter and I watch Home Improvement. You know, I'm like, I stand behind her like I don't care. Yeah, Al and I right there, wait till you see what comes around the corner. You know, Debbie Dunning was right up the side going like this.
When I have kids one day, it's going to be kind of cool to say, here was Daddy at 10, Daddy at 11. It was quite an experience, I must say.
It's so monumentally huge in my life, and it'll probably be the thing that I'm most remembered for.
As for the famous Tool Time set, it now belongs to Tim. He stores the workshop in a Southern California warehouse. Maybe one day, Alan will dust off the mothballs for a Home Improvement reunion.
I would love to do the Taylors in Paris. Just out of nowhere, go do a movie of it.
Think about it. The things we could blow up, the stuff we could do with a budget, like a big movie, could be hysterical.
This sitcom featured a loving family, helpful friends, and an ongoing parade of outrageous do-it-yourself disasters. And more than that, Home Improvement assembled a piece of television history.
The show was uplifting, positive. It embraced so many human qualities.
There's not another show out there like it, and it's a funny show.
You're looking through our windows. This is my relationship with my husband. This is my husband.
It was a really great school for television, and I had no idea what I'd missed. I had no idea how much I loved that show.